Hello everyone, JW here. Hope you've all been keeping well. Bit of a surprise video this one. I had no intention of making it until about a week ago when an idea sprang into my head, and after thinking it through, it does seem like a pretty good idea. So what is the idea? Well, ever since starting the channel, I've been working towards something bigger than just the challenge mode walkthroughs. That something bigger was, and still remains, a one-to-one recreation of my nearest zoo, which for me is Yorkshire Wildlife Park. It's about 90 minutes away, about an hour and a half via car, depending on traffic and weather conditions, of course. This is still a goal, but it is no longer the only goal. Ever since October 2021, I've been doing a test run of recreating Yorkshire Wildlife Park within Planet Zoo, and it is going pretty well, all things considered, and I'm fairly pleased with my progress so far. It's only when I got to a certain part of the park that I realised that I didn't really have the building skills necessary to do it justice. I needed something that was a learning experience, but also a playground of sorts for me to just run wild and experiment with to see what I can learn. So with that in mind, the aforementioned idea came into my head. What if I did 2 series? Have the videos on the one-to-one recreation of Yorkshire Wildlife Park, but also have a series that's my own zoo, where I'm not constrained by pre-existing designs, layouts and animals. A series where I can just experiment and run wild and hone my building skills and the understanding of the game to better recreate Yorkshire Wildlife Park in that series, but also so that you guys can learn along with me too and become more involved in things, because recreating a wildlife park, you want it to be as accurate as possible, so there isn't a lot of room for other input necessarily. It is what it is, you just have to recreate it. That said, so it was that from that day forward, I decided that there will indeed now be 2 series coming to the channel. I'm going to go into some detail on those series so that you can understand how and why they came to exist and what I want to do with them as time goes on, starting with Yorkshire Wildlife Park. The Yorkshire Wildlife Park Planet Zoo one-to-one recreation series, which is a mouthful, so I like to call it YWPPZ, was going to be starting in about May-June time this year, and it would have had 1 episode a month. That will still be the case, it will have 1 episode a month. I will try my absolute best to keep it on the same day of the week or the same date every month, but that might be out of my control when the time comes to start that series. We'll just have to wait and see. The series will have no narrative, it won't be a role play or anything like that, it will just be me showing you what the park looks like in the real world, and then how I've recreated it within Planet Zoo. I may do some speed builds for that every now and then, but honestly it won't be the most interesting thing, as the park keeps its enclosure designs fairly simple and straightforward. I wanted to start this series because Yorkshire Wildlife Park is a very special place in my heart. I love the park, it is always changing, always evolving, new animals, revamped habitats, successful births adding to the conservation and preservation of those animal species. And having visited the park 3 times in 2021, I figured it was a fairly simple park to recreate within Planet Zoo. And I still stand by that. I think once I get my skills and techniques honed, it should be relatively straightforward to recreate the park within Planet Zoo on a 1-to-1 scale. Now, of course, I say 1-to-1 scale, that is my intention, but scale is very difficult to get right in Planet Zoo because everything seems so big in the game when compared to reality, and some of the animals are a little bit smaller when compared to reality. So it's going to be very difficult to get right. So it may be that it's as close to 1-to-1 as you can feasibly get within Planet Zoo, which I am mostly fine with, to be fair. Allowances can be made here and there given some of the foibles that Planet Zoo has. But my aim with that series, beyond recreating the park in a 1-to-1 scale, is to keep it updated alongside the real life park, so it acts as a sort of digital experience for people who can't visit the park. It will be slow progress. I'm allowing myself 4 days a month to recreate Yorkshire Wildlife Park, so it's essentially 1 day a week. So it may be that we only do 1 enclosure per episode, meaning that to do half the park would take 1 year to complete, give or take. But we'll see. My schedule is a little bit iffy recently because there is so much going on, but that's essentially the lowdown of that series. recreating Yorkshire Wildlife Park within Planet Zoo on a 1-to-1 scale wherever possible. Now, that series will use mods for the animals as well as the Boxless Shop mod and Kai's free build mod. I would not be able to recreate the park without using those mods, so it's a non-negotiable there, I'm afraid. The plan was to start in May-June this year, but I've since decided to just start it whenever I'm ready and go from there, really, rather than putting a time frame on it and forcing myself to work on it when realistically I'm not ready to tackle all of it. And since writing the script for this video, something else has changed which will hamper my progress on the build. Up until very, very recently, I have always visited Yorkshire Wildlife Park with my girlfriend, partly because she loved polar bears and cats, and Yorkshire Wildlife Park has a fair amount of polar bears and cats. It was also partly because going to the zoo is a very nice thing to do in a relationship, but also because I can't drive yet, so she drove both of us there. However, regrettably, 2 days ago, she broke up with me. It was a definite breakup. All my stuff is moved out. It's not a breakup that you come back from, realistically. So any future visits to the park are up in the air at the moment. So I can recreate the park as accurate as the game will allow me to up to January 2022, so January this year. But anything beyond that is in limbo. I suppose then in hindsight it's good that I intended to have a second series that can fill as a gap if there does indeed be a gap in Yorkshire Wildlife Park content. But on to that other series. So where my own zoo series is concerned, there are 2 names for it. It will start out under one name and then change to another name. It'll make sense as the episodes for that series go on. And this series was primarily started for 2 reasons. Number 1, I did need somewhere to experiment and refine my building skills and understanding of how the game works so that I can use those skills in YWPPZ and other projects, as well as sharing those learning experiences with yourselves and allowing you to become involved with that. And reason number 2, I was watching Dan XG's Tropical Wings Zoo. Great series, go check it out if you don't watch it already. And I really like what he's doing with that series and the narrative and all that side of things. And I've also been watching Leaf, of course. I mean, Leaf and Planet Zoo are synonymous at this point. And his Hope Island series that's part of the ZSU initiative on Discord. I'll hold my hands up. I'm not a Discord man myself. I'm 26. I feel a little bit out of place on Discord. It just isn't my cup of tea. But I created an account and checked out the ZSU and what it has to offer. And it is a really good idea. But the way it's run just isn't for me. There's a lot of admin to it, like posting updates, trading animals, notifying people that you're trading animals, following the rules, performing activities to earn your tokens to perform more actions on the server, being active at least once a week. All of that is great. It is just too micromanaged for my liking. So I took Dan XG's Brixford map, which is available on the Steam workshop. I will link that below. I modified it a bit for my tastes and needs and what I want to do with the zoo, and started creating a narrative for the zoo that I'm going to be building on that map. And I am pleased to tell you that that series will be starting in sort of the end of March, beginning of April, that kind of window. And to start with, there will probably be 2 to 3 episodes a month, and then it will maybe drop as the builds get a little bit bigger and more ambitious and therefore take a bit more time. And of course, when the Yorkshire Wildlife Park series starts, that may affect how many episodes there are as well. That series is going to be realism focused and inspired primarily by British zoos and my own imagination, but we'll also be looking at European, Australian and American zoos too. Planning a mix of speed builds and showcases for that series. There will be plenty of opportunities for you to get involved with the naming of animals, naming of keepers and more. Make sure you follow me on Instagram to take part in that. You can find me on Instagram at JW_YT. Of course, there will still be the challenge walkthroughs, that goes without saying, but they are dependent on the Planet Zoo DLCs, which are usually once every 3 months, sometimes once every 4 months, so they'll just be as and when we get a DLC with a challenge mode. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of this little video. I shall see you all soon. Make sure you're subscribed if any of this tickles your fancy. And thank you for all the support so far. Until the next time, stay safe and stay kind. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye for now.